In a previous video, we showed how to factorize quadratics, how to go from something like this where it's x squared, take 3x, take 10, and how to convert it into two nice sets of brackets, as you can see in white. I recommend for you to watch that video because it makes a lot more sense for this video on null factor law. In this video, we use these final sets of brackets here, all right, to find or to solve quadratic equations, to find where they intersect with the x-axes. So go and watch that video, come back, and we can continue with the null factor law. So we can solve these sorts of quadratic equations using what is called the null factor law. I'll write here what the null factor law is, or just a general definition of the null factor law. It is a statement that basically says that if any number is multiplied by 0, the answer is 0. Now we all know this, we just didn't know that. Some of you may not have known that there was a name for this. So the null factor law, if any number is multiplied by 0, the answer is 0. That is the basics of that law. How that helps us is with these quadratic equations that have been factorized, as we showed before. If we are given a quadratic equation that is like this, take 6, we follow our factorizing techniques and we get to x plus 2, x take 3. So we get to x plus 2, x take 3. That is factorized. We know that to solve this is to find our x-axis, which is at y equals 0. So we want to find out where this equation equals 0. We use the null factor law. If any number is multiplied by 0, the answer is 0. So if we take one of these brackets here and we make that equal to 0, that is multiplying with this bracket, and whatever that bracket is, okay, 0 times that bracket equals 0. And we can do it the other way around. If this is a unknown, if this bracket is an unknown and we multiply it by this bracket, which is 0, that also equals 0. So we want to find what we can do with this bracket here, this first bracket, what we can do with x. What does x need to equal for x plus 2 to equal 0? What does x equal for x plus 2 to equal 0? Same one with this second bracket here. What does x equal so that x take 3 equals 0? Well, looking at this first one here, if we want x plus 2 to equal 0, then x is equal to negative 2. Negative 2 plus 2 equals 0. And if we look at this first one, x take 3 equals 0, well, then we know that x equals 3, because 3 take 3 equals 0. So the solution to this is x equals negative 2 and x equals 3. They are the points where we have an x-intercept. If we look on my Desmos screen, you can see I've got x squared, take 1x, take 6. And if we look at this graph, it goes down here. We've got a minimum down the bottom here, and our x-intercept is at negative 2 and at positive 3. And that is exactly what we had in our solutions. So if you can factorize your quadratic equation into the two brackets, then you can find, very easily, you can find what the two solutions are. For this next question, I've got x squared plus 4x take 5. I will factorize this using our previous methods. So that will be x plus 5 and x take 1. All right, we want to find our x-intercepts, so that is where this equals 0. Same up here where this equals 0. And now we use the null factor law. So the null factor law states once again that if anything is multiplied by 0, that will equal 0. Same thing, if the 0 is multiplied by anything, that will equal 0. All right, so we want to find in this first bracket here what we can do with x so that x plus 5 equals 0, and in this second bracket what we can do with x, or what x equals, so that x take 1 equals 0. In this first one, for x plus 5 to equal 0, x needs to equal negative 5. In the second one, x take 1 equals 0, so x equals positive 1. Once again, if we look over to my Desmos screen here, x squared plus 4x take 5. This is our graph. It comes all the way down here, passes through the x-intercept, has a minimum, and then goes up through the y-intercept and through the x-intercept again. And these points where it passes through the x-intercept is at x equals negative 5 and x equals positive 1. Exactly what we found in our solution on paper. X equals negative 5, x equals positive 1. Now, if you haven't found a pattern, let me just go through a few more. If you're working on questions that revolve around using the null factor law, oftentimes they will just give you a question like this, where you have the brackets given to you already. They won't have the question and they will want you to, there may be a question that is that difficult that will want you to factorize and then use the null factor law. But oftentimes, if they want you to use the null factor law, they will just give you the brackets and you can then go from there. So I'm going to answer these questions and you will pick up the pattern and work out what I'm doing. For example, this first one, okay, we want this to equal 0 or this to equal 0. So we want to find an x value where x plus 3 equals 0 and a different x value where x takes 7 equals 0. So for this one, x equals negative 3, and for this one, x equals 7, right? For this one, for question 2, x equals 4, and x equals negative 5. For this one, for question 3, x equals negative 6, and x equals positive 2. And if you're not picking up the pattern right now, all we are doing is we are taking this number here, all right, and we are flipping, we are reversing this sign. We are taking this number and we are reversing this sign. All right, so for question 4, x equals positive 1 and x equals negative 8. X equals negative 4, x equals positive 3. Question 6, x equals positive 2, x equals negative 9, x equals negative 7, x equals positive 6. You won't always have two positive, a positive or a negative. You might have a negative and a negative, or a positive and a positive. All right. Again, question 8, x equals positive 5, x equals negative 2, x equals negative 1, x equals positive 4, x equals positive 3, x equals negative 7. All I'm doing is taking this number here and I'm flipping this sign. Taking this number, flipping the sign. X equals negative 8, x equals positive 1, and continuing, x equals positive 6, x equals negative 3, x equals negative 5, x equals positive 2. I won't worry about those last ones. Let's just so that you can believe me, let's go into Desmos. So we'll go on Desmos and we will type in some of these. So let's type in question 1, x plus 3 and x takes 7. You'll see we've got this line, it goes all the way down, quite far down. There's the minimum here, and then it goes back up. And the place where it crosses over the line is at negative 3 and positive 7. So that's what we wrote on our iPad, negative 3, positive 7. Let's jump down to question 4, and we'll do x take 1, x plus 8. So this is for question 4. You can see, again, it goes quite far down, but there's a minimum down there. Comes back up, and we have got x equals negative 8 and x equals positive 1. So x equals positive 1, x equals negative 8. That's exactly what we wrote. Jumping down to question 7, we'll try question 7 out. So we've got x plus 7, x take 6. See, it does the same thing. It goes quite far down, once again, very far down, but we've got a minimum there. And when we come back up to see our x-intercepts, we've got negative 7 and positive 6. Negative 7, positive 6. One more, we will try, we'll take a look at question 9, where it says plus 1 and x take 4. This one's a bit of a smaller one, but you see it goes down, there's a minimum, comes up again, and we've got an x-intercept at negative 1 and an x-intercept at positive 4. So that's exactly what we wrote, negative 1 and positive 4. Let me just show you an example of if we had two positives. So if we look at this one here, x take 2, bracket, x take 4. Okay, looking at that, not worrying about the graph, just looking at this on the left, we should see that there is an x-intercept at positive 2 and an x-intercept at positive 4. Now if we look over on the graph on the right, we see there's an x-intercept at positive 2 and an x-intercept at positive 4. So it's not always going to be a negative and positive, you might get just a negative. But that is how to use the null factor law. Factorize your quadratic equation, and if you can factorize it into two nice brackets, find the x value for one of the brackets so that that bracket equals 0, and then find the x value for the other bracket so that that bracket equals 0. Thank you for watching. Pause this video now and see if you can do these 7 questions yourself.